morning or good afternoon, all depends where you are. My presentation is about the Aristotelian metaphysics of social collectives. I really think that Aristotle's idea of social collectives can contribute to contemporary thinking about social ontology. The abstract of the abstract is this. This paper intends to introduce an Aristotelian analysis of the metaphysical character of social collectives. The first section looks for a characterization of social collectives, exploring common language meanings. After explaining some Aristotelian metaphysical notions, it describes and analyzes Aristotle's view on social collectives, their nature and properties. The last section, finally, presents some theories of the ontology of social collectives that share some similarities with Aristotle's. The paper argues that they would benefit from considering it. I have adopted the strategy of characterizing the social collectives, looking for the common language used about them. I base this strategy on Aristotle statement on his topics that says this: we ought to use our terms to mean the same things as most people mean by them. There are a lot of definitions of the different social collectives, and so my idea was to look what people think about them and try to detect what are the common characteristics of them. For example, about society, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it as a voluntary association of individuals for common ends, an enduring and cooperating social group whose members have developed organized patterns of relationship through interaction with one another. Concerning association, the same dictionary defines it as an organization of persons having a common interest. You can see that I'm highlighting some of the terms used in these definitions. The Cambridge Dictionary defines association as a group of people who work together in a single organization for a particular purpose. Concerning the group, Merriam-Webster says, a number of individuals assembled together or having some unifying relationship. We pass to community, the people with common interests living in a particular area for the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and for the Cambridge, the people living in one particular area or people who are considered as a unit because of their common interests, social group or nationality. An organization, a group of people who work together for the same purpose. Well, all in all, the previous definitions reveal common characteristics of social collectives. They are composed by individuals that share a common purpose or interest that unites them and drives interactions among them. Well, before going to the social ontology of collectives, according to Aristotle, I have to introduce some very well-known notions of Aristotelian metaphysics. The first notions are the notions of substance and accident. Substance or things are ontologically primary or basic entities, not properties. Substance is individual, is at ease, and separable in the sense that its existence can be affirmed without invoking the existence of anything else. Accidents, instead, or properties or attributes, are what happens to a substance either immediately or in a mediated way through another accident, for example. And they are, according to Aristotle, one of Aristotle's lists, quantity, quality, relation, location, time, position, possession, doing or action, and undergoing or passion. Another Aristotle metaphysic basic notion is his doctrine of all causes of all entities. He made a distinction among real causes. First, the efficient cause that answers to the question, who made it? The formal cause why this object or accident and not another? What is it? What is it, the structure of this entity? The material cause answers to the question, what is it made of? And finally, the final cause, to what end was it made? For Aristotle, the final cause, is the cause of the causes, the cause that triggers the action of the rest of causes, of the efficient, the formal, and the material. Well, now once introduced this metaphysic basic notion of Aristotle, we can go on with Aristotle on social collectives. He begins his politics by stating, all associations aim at the same good. It's the idea of the same good, the same purpose, the same intention that is in the common language. In politics, Aristotle refers to the common interest or advantage of cities, noting, for example, that governments which have a regard for the common interest are constituted in accordance with a strict principle of justice. The different social collectives search for a common good, interest, aim, or purpose in different ways. This search can be natural, spontaneous, or designed, and it can be more or less strong or committed by their members. Aristotle frequently uses a logical instrument that helps to gather these different degrees or ways of adherence to a common end and to consider the search for an end as a common characteristic of social collectives, the analogy of proportion. He applies this analogy to the good in the Nicomacheanetics and to justice also in the Nicomacheanetics. And this allows to include social collectives that are weak because the common purpose or adherence to it is weak by this analogy. However, there is a limit to this weakness. Aristotle says that in the case of all things which have several parts and in which the totality is not, as it were, a mere heap, but the whole is something beside the parts, there is a cause. That is, what there is a cause, we have more than a mere heap. A mere heap is not a social collective. For Aristotle, unities of things or wholes may be of three different kinds: substantial, merely accidental, or unities of order. We have a substantial unity when, for example, we combine copper and iron, and as a result, we get bronze. Each previous substance loses its proper substantiality, and a new substance appears. This is the strongest whole, the substance. We have, on the other side, a merely accidental unity, a mere heap, when, for example, we randomly put papers one on the top of the other, and as a result, we get a pile of papers. Each paper preserves its substantiality. The unity only adds an accidental property, being over or under another paper. For Aristotle, society or social collectives are not substantial unities, are not mere accidental unities. What they are? They are unities of order. Yeah? We have finally a unity of order when the parts preserve their substantiality and their ends, but they also have common ends. Applied to social collectives, as Aroni, an Aristotelian scholar, states, he, Aristotle, considered all human communities to consist of parts that in some respects have an operation that is independent and in other respects participate in the operations of the whole. The end claims for an order of the parts. Aristotle affirms that substance cannot be composed out of substance. Thus, in the case of social collectives, given that they are composed of individual substances, they cannot be substantial wholes. The unity is given by the orientation toward ends, which implies an order. This order has a normative character. If we want to attain a goal, we have to act in a specific way, and we need to have an authority. That is, this order does not produce in a spontaneous way, because we are in the realm of the human being that is free, and so we need to have a normative character to attain this order. So, in sum, what is the ontology of social collective for Aristotle? A final cause, that are common purposes, triggers efficient causes, laws, norms, uses, to produce individual interactions of human beings, the material causes, in an ordered way, the formal cause, thus constituting an ordered whole, the social collective. For the Aristotelian scholar John Finnis, this applies to all kinds of social collectives. A group, in the relevant sense, whether team, club, society, enterprise, corporation, or community, is to be said to exist wherever there is over an appreciable span of time, a coordination of activity by a number of persons in the form of interactions and with a view to a shared objective. You see that there is the final cause, the formal cause, the efficient cause, and the material cause, that is a shared objective, the coordination, the formal activity, which is efficient, and the persons is the material cause. For him, sharing in fame, rather than multiplicity of interaction, is constitutive of human groups, communities, or societies. The shared aim calls for an order. The aim is not enough to have a social collective, but it is the factor that triggers a concerted order or articulated interaction. This interaction depends on the freedom of the people interacting, and it is thus weak. This is the reason why we need authorities and norms. Well, there is a final point that is the question of the action of the whole. Does the whole have properly actions, decisions, feelings, etc.? Most countries have legislation in place establishing the rights and duties of different kinds of social collectives. For example, according to the UK Corporate Manslaughter and Corporate Homicide Act, companies and organizations can be found guilty of corporate manslaughter as a result of serious management failures resulting in a gross breach of a duty of care. For its part, the US federal sentencing guidelines for organizations state that organizations, like individuals, can be found guilty of criminal conduct, and that an entire organization, despite its best efforts to prevent wrongdoing in its fronts, can still be held criminally liable for any of its employees' illegal actions, thus obliging businesses to develop compliance programs. Does Aristotle theory considers this possibility? Yes. The Aristotelian scholar Terence Irwin is that the whole has some further unity beyond the collection of its parts because its identity is distinct from the identity of the collection. This is the base on which we can base the idea of the action of the whole. George Duke, an Aristotelian scholar, marks that Aristotle not only attributes eudaimonia, that is happiness, but also virtues to the polis. The apparent inconsistency can be resolved by allowing that the polis sustains predication as a structured unity of individuals with the same purpose, not as a natural whole, a substance. A part of a whole can act separately from the whole, as a soldier can act separately from the entire army. But the whole, nonetheless, has an operation that is not proper to its parts, but rather to the whole, for example, an assault by the entire army. It is therefore justified to ascribe action to the whole, insofar as it is unity structured by a common goal, the same idea. The aim of the collective trigger actions that any individual alone would not perform in the absence of it. Well, and finally, in the last section, I describe some similarities to the Aristotle conception of the notions of social ontology of Anthony Quinton, John Searle, Sumas Miller, Margaret Gilbert, Raymond Tuomola, and Dave Elder Bass. For reasons of time, I cannot describe here what are the similarities and what are the differences, but this is in the paper. I skip this and pass to the conclusions. Conclusion. For Aristotle, social collectives are composed of ordered interaction of substantial individuals aiming at common ends. They cannot be reduced to the individuals. These ends and interactions are ontologically different from them. The end is a real cause. Relations and actions are real accidents with ontological density, regardless of their inherence in substance. Social relation adds an order towards an end, without which we could not explain individual social actions. This is why, for Aristotle, social collectives are more than the sum of the individuals. They are for him unities of order, not substantial unities. Was Aristotle, we can ask, an ontological individualist or an ontological holist? He was neither. It would be anachronical to assign Aristotle's thoughts on the nature of society to these categories. Finally, in the paper, I have described some contemporary positions on social collective. I have claimed that these views would benefit from considering Aristotle-related ideas because his metaphysical categories open the door to a concept of social collective that is neither substantially, not merely fictionally, which seems consistent with those thinkers' conception, albeit not with tensions. Well, thank you very much. This is all, and I wait for your comments and questions.